Welcome to the Remote Control Podcast, where we push the limits of the mind and uncover the hidden history of psychic intelligence, from ancient oracles who challenged kings to Cold War spies buried in secrecy. We dive into remote viewing, anomalous cognition, Project Stargate, missing aircraft, Soviet time mirrors, Mars sessions, and mysteries like Tunguska. This isn't science fiction, but documented files and first-hand accounts from programs that tried to weaponize the mind.
Okay, let's just jump right in. We are diving into a realm that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. But for decades, it was treated as, top secret military intelligence.
We're talking about psychic warfare.
Exactly, psychic warfare.
Yeah.
And we have these declassified U.S. government reports that looked at the human mind as a literal battlefield dimension.
And not just a battlefield, but a threat that some analysts thought could be, and this is a direct quote, more dangerous than nuclear weapons.
That's a huge claim. Where does that come from?
It comes right out of the Cold War mindset. We're looking at a 1988 Air War College report by Lieutenant Colonel Dolan M. McKelvy. It's called Psychic Warfare: Exploring the Mind Frontier.
Sounds intense.
It is. His whole argument was that man's greatest potential is a prisoner of man, that our own skepticism or cynicism about these psychic abilities, or psi, was putting the U.S. in a really vulnerable spot.
Because the Soviets weren't skeptical at all.
Not at all. U.S. intelligence believed the Soviets were taking this research incredibly seriously, at all levels.
So our mission for this deep dive is to give you a shortcut into this whole secret history. We're using that McKelvy report and some later Defense Intelligence Agency plans.
Including the big one, Project Stargate from 1994.
Right. And with those, we're going to map out what the U.S. was exploring, why they were willing to risk, total scientific ridicule to do it, and this huge internal battle they fought over something they called anomalous mental phenomena.
So to start, we probably need to get the terminology straight. The military didn't just call it magic or something.
No, they had a whole lexicon.
They did. The umbrella term for everything is psi. That just means psychic functioning. And the one they really focused on for military use was a kind of ESP.
Extrasensory perception.
Specifically, remote viewing.
And that's the classic spy movie scenario, right? Using your mind to see a place, an object, an event that's completely hidden from you.
Precisely. That was the bread and butter of their operational efforts. But, psi also covers things like telepathy, mind-to-mind stuff, and precognition, knowing the future.
And what was it, dowsing?
Yeah, dowsing. The ability to find things, water, minerals. It's an old practice.
Okay, so that's the perception side. But the part that really worried them was PK.
Yes, PK, or psychokinesis. The reports also call it anomalous perturbation, or AP. This is mind over matter, moving or changing physical things just with your thoughts.
And when you add technology to that,
you get psychotronics. And that's the stuff that absolutely terrified U.S. military planners when they thought about what the Soviets might be doing.
It all sounds so modern, so Cold War. But the sources actually trace this back, way back.
Oh, yeah. They start the history lesson in 550 D.C. with King Croesus of Lydia.
So he was facing the Persians and needed an intelligence advantage.
Desperately. So he decided he was going to test the famous Oracle of Delphi. But he didn't just, ask a vague question. He set up what was basically an ancient controlled experiment.
An experiment for remote viewing, right? How would you even do that back then?
Well, he sent messengers to the Oracle and a few others. He told them, on a specific day, at a specific time, you need to ask the Oracle for a written description of what I'm doing.
And at that exact moment, he did something incredibly specific and, frankly, bizarre.
He did. He boiled a tortoise and a lamb together in a brass pot with the lid on.
It's so random, you could never guess that.
And that's the point. It was a perfect control detail. And of all the oracles, only Delphi came back with a written description of that exact activity.
What?
So Croesus was instantly sold. He saw remote viewing as a strategic intelligence multiplier he could use against his enemies. And he acted on it.
That's an amazing anecdote. It really grounds the whole idea. So if a king saw the value 2,500 years ago, what took the U.S. so long to get serious about it?
The threat. The U.S. involvement was a pure reaction to what they believed the Soviet Union was up to.
So what were the Soviets actually trying to do?
The reports say their main goal was modification of the behavior and feelings of remote humans and animals by psychic means.
Wait, behavior modification from a distance? That's terrifying.
It's mind control. And U.S. intelligence was genuinely afraid the Soviets were already ahead, that they had maybe already deployed some kind of psychotronic weapon. They felt they had to catch up.
And that's when things got operational in the U.S. In the 70s, CIA Director George Bush authorized these high-level seminars, and that led to programs like Project Scan8.
And Scan-It started getting hits. The classic example they cite is a psychic named Price. In one test, he gave them a 5-page written report detailing a target location.
5 pages. On what?
On a classified CIA site 135 miles southwest of D.C. He described the interior, objects on people's desks, the whole layout.
And was he right?
3 weeks later, the CIA confirmed it. All accurate. Then another psychic, Swan, he described a totally unknown Soviet installation right down to its secret rail lines, also later verified.
So even if it wasn't 100% reliable when it worked spectacularly. And the DIA actually used this stuff, right, to find plane crash wreckage.
They did. They used psychics to look for evidence for MIAs. That is a real-world, boots-on-the-ground kind of application.
But the research went beyond just spying, didn't it? It moved into much darker places.
Oh, yeah. Personnel control and potential weapons. On the personnel side, the Army started testing biofeedback and meditation with Green Berets.
Meditating Green Berets, why?
To get conscious control over their autonomic nervous system, the stuff that's usually involuntary. Imagine a soldier who could mentally dial down his fear response, or even slow his own bleeding after being shot.
Okay, that's one thing. That's self-control. But then there's the truly disturbing stuff, projecting that influence outward.
This is where the reports get chilling. There was a 1975 experiment with a psychic healer, a man named Dean Kraft.
What did he do?
In a lab setting, he mentally lowered a lab rat's heart rate all the way down to 0. He killed it with his mind, with no physical contact.
You're kidding me. That wasn't an official report.
It was. And the Soviets had similar accounts about a woman named Nina Kulagina, who they claimed stopped a frog's heart under similar conditions.
Mentally killing an animal from a distance. I mean, did the U.S. military actually take this kind of thing seriously as a threat?
Extremely seriously, because it leads directly to the idea of weaponized psychotronics. The sources reference an author, T.E. Bearden, who listed 26 probable psychotronic weapons the Soviets might be developing.
26? Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, you've got things called the death radiator, the brain probe, the emotion radiator ray, and even weather control systems.
This sounds like a comic book.
It does. But the strategic concern wasn't just how wild these ideas were, it was the vulnerability they exposed in our own systems.
Our dependence on high tech.
Exactly. The reports warned that if these non-conventional forces, what they called scalar EM weaponry, if that stuff was real, then all of our existing electronic equipment, our computers, our communications, our weapon guidance, it could all become useless, vulnerable to a mind-based attack.
So our greatest strength, our technology, becomes our Achilles heel.
That's the core tension. You have these verified intelligence hits on one side, and these, frankly, terrifying reports about stopping hearts. But on the other, you have this deep, deep institutional skepticism.
How do you even begin to reconcile those two things?
Well, that's the internal battle. In Western society, and especially in the media, this kind of research was just ridiculed. The reports talk about newspapers using phrases like hogwash and voodoo warfare. A Washington Post columnist called it a comic strip and voodoo warriors' arsenal.
Yeah, you can just imagine the headlines. If you're a serious scientist, why would you risk your entire career on voodoo warfare?
And that mockery, that political heat, made funding a nightmare. A 1982 survey of elite American scientists showed that skepticism was it was everywhere. The academic world just wouldn't touch it.
So the scientific community had what the sources called a mindset problem.
That's the key distinction they made. Skepticism is good, right? It's healthy, it challenges things. But they argued that cynicism, which is trying to force nature to fit into what we already think we know, that just stops progress in its tracks.
And the biggest operational problem was always consistency, wasn't it? That you just couldn't make it work on demand.
That was always the main critique. Psychics have good days and bad days. The results were notoriously difficult to replicate. But the reports push back a little. They say, look, dousing for water and oil is an established practice in many places. Psychics get used in criminal investigations. Just because it's not 100% doesn't mean it's zero.
The question became, How do we make it reliable?
Exactly. And that demand for real rigor is what led to the DIA's big plan in 1994, Project Stargate. The goal was to shut down the ridicule by building a real scientific foundation under it.
They wanted to establish the scientific validity of what they called anomalous mental phenomena, or AMP.
And then, and only then, figure out if it had any real military utility. And the plan for it was incredibly rigorous. It was multidisciplinary.
That feels like an understatement. They weren't just bringing in psychologists.
No, no. The plan explicitly called for data from fields like general relativity, quantum measurement, neural networks, thermodynamics.
So high-level physics. Why?
Because the phenomenon just didn't fit classical physics. Telepathy, remote viewing. It suggests information is moving without any known electromagnetic signal. They were looking for a whole new physical mechanism, maybe something in quantum entanglement, maybe something else. They needed a new physics to pull it out of the realm of voodoo.
And did they have any statistical proof to stand on?
They did. They pointed to meta-analyses of things like the Ganzfeld experiments. Now, any one psychic hit might be a small effect, but when you combine thousands of trials, the results were consistently better than chance.
So the data suggested something real was happening.
Right. It supported the existence of some kind of non-visual signal, a phenomenon that, at least warranted serious research, not just instant dismissal.
Okay, so if you accept that, even for a moment, what did the military reports say you would need to actually use this on a battlefield to make it an operational tool?
They laid out 3 key things. First, you need to be able to control it on demand. Can't be random. Second, you have to be able to teach it and learn it. It can't just be a few special people.
It has to be trainable.
Right. And third, you need to be able to practice it over and over to build confidence and reliability.
And did they think it could be taught?
The research actually suggested that, yeah, the basic ability might be latent in a lot of people. It was just a matter of finding the right training methods, the right environment. And that's what Stargate was trying to formalize.
Which brings us all the way back to that 1988 report. McKelvy's conclusion was that the U.S. was suffering from a failure of attitude, a restrictive, cynical view that was putting the country at risk.
His recommendation was basically a cultural revolution inside the military. He said they had to shed the super-secret cloaks, open the super-secret door, and get leaders at all levels to understand that this was a potential battlefield they were ignoring.
And the warning underneath it all is that if psychotronic weapons are real, our complete dependence on electronics is our greatest vulnerability. We might be building the most advanced Achilles heel in history.
And that's the choice the reports laid out. Are you going to be caught totally unprepared in a new domain of warfare just because it makes you uncomfortable, because it challenges your view of reality?
So what does this all mean for you, listening to this? For years, during the height of the Cold War, the U.S. government took the human mind seriously as a potential weapon. And this was all driven by a very real fear of what the Soviets were doing.
And it led to these high-level, very controversial projects that produced both, some incredible intelligence hits, but also a ton of scientific ridicule because the results were just so inconsistent.
But the very existence of something like the DIA's Stargate plan, this formal, multi-year, scientifically rigorous attempt to understand it, that proves this potential was never fully dismissed by the people in charge of national security.
Because they knew that if this capability was real, even a tiny bit real, then ignoring it would be a catastrophic strategic mistake.
And the sources leave us with this really challenging final thought. They suggest we're still struggling to get military leaders comfortable with just, hands-on computer systems. How could we possibly be ready to accept, use, or defend against mind-based warfare?
The ultimate vulnerability might not be in our tech at all. It might be in our mindset. If the basic circuits in our most advanced weapons are vulnerable to an attack we refuse to believe is possible, how can you ever chart a course to enter that battlefield? The advice from the source material really holds up. Look around in awareness, not back in anger or forward in fear.